I'm Turk Strawman at the Ryan Q Amateur Rocket. Thank you for selecting this video on, what do we call it here tentatively? Insight into transhumanism. Let's call it that. But before we get on with things, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, then stop annoying me with the possibility that you didn't do that yet and just go ahead and do it. It's in your own best interest, all right? And then also, while you're at it, activate the notification bell feature, okay? And if by the end of this video you like it, give it a thumb up. And if you didn't like it, give it a thumb up anyway. And share the joy of the channel with others. Now let's move on. Some insight. You want some insight? You want some big picture insight? A little bit of intuitive insight into a look into the fabric of transhumanism. Look, here I don't have time to lay out what transhumanism is. Again, in another video, look at a few of the immediately prior uploaded videos here on endgame, turning point things. Okay, look, just get up to date here. This is a continuation. This is some insight into the matter, things that are a little deeper than what I've said so far about our new additional direction here in this channel. This human endgame thing involving especially artificial intelligence, nanotechnology. Artificial intelligence by way of nanotechnology into transhumanism, the end of the human species as we know it, and perhaps the end of our ability to have any self-control, self-sovereignty, true selfhood, individuality, so forth. All right. Look. Ever since the Copernican revolution, a few hundred years back, there's been a spiritual void in humanity. Prior to the Copernican revolution, you know, Copernicus, the guy who said the earth goes around the sun, not the heavens go around the earth. Okay. Up until that point, the idea that we were at the center of creation, astronomically, as well as purposefully, that was our role, that was our spiritual birthright, that was who and what we are. We're at the center of everything. God made us at the center stage. Center as far as importance, and that's why we were on this terrestrial plane, which is the center of the universe. Everything revolved around it. And all things were explained in correspondence with those notions. All things were explained with respect to their purposes. Individual things worked toward their purposes, like water ran downhill to come to a resting place. But why would that purpose exist? Well, it was for us. We could bathe, we could drink, we could swim. Why did an acorn, what's the purpose of an acorn? Well, it's to become an oak tree. Well, what's that for ultimately? It's for us. What do we get out of that? Shade, wood, building materials, acorns. All right. Then, once there was mathematical and telescopic evidence for things not going that way, we're not at we're not at astronomical center stage. Well, then suddenly explanations, the idea that we're center stage, that went out astronomically. That obviously wasn't the case anymore. But then, what about all the rest that went with that? Our purpose, who we are, what we were created for, what everything else was made for. The purpose of everything. The purpose of our lives. Where'd that go? I mean, there wasn't any purpose in explanations anymore. In fact, explanations became the scientific ones now, the ones that, you have empirical evidence for. Numbers. The mathematical language of science. Numbers, math, quantities rather than qualities. All right, and especially when it comes to who and what we are at our very core. Our purpose for living. We still here. What's the purpose of anything at all? What's the meaning of life? Is there any purpose in anything? Why do I get up in the morning? All right. So that was a movement from the pre-modern era to the modern era. That was one of his characteristics. A loss of sense of purpose, a loss of spiritual fulfillment, a loss of feeling spiritually significant. The modern era. Now we move into postmodernism. Well, what's next? Okay, one technological thing we have going on, and it's a very real and present, imminent affair, is for humanity. I mean, this is in the slating, by computer scientists and creators and developers of nanotechnology and artificial intelligence, is for this whole idea of transhumanism by way of these technologies to come into full swing within 10 years, pretty much across the globe. I'm not kidding. And one of the selling points for this, from what I've heard, is that, hey, this is going to connect us at a very deep level. Connect us. We'll feel connected to everything. We'll all be one. We'll be like one. We'll feel the oneness with things. We will feel that deep sense of connection and meaning and purpose. Well, we don't. It's been too long, guys, for us to remember what the real thing feels like. We weren't alive in the pre-modern era. Who remembers that? Who remembers what a real sense of purpose felt like? What's proposed here is fake. It's artificial. It's based in artificial intelligence. In fact, artificial. There's nothing artificial about intelligence, but there is something called artificial intelligence. Technologically, yes, it is there, but it's fake. For us to replace some spiritual hole inside of us, we don't remember what the real thing might feel like. To replace that with some, misdirection, misunderstanding, some weak-ass selling points of artificial intelligence by way of nanotechnology, to replace the real, what there used to be, some kind of a real thing at our core, with something fake, and call that spiritual progress, to call that a feeling of connectedness. Hey, I'm sure a colony of ants feels connected too. But, that's like, but that's a natural example of a collective. They're all like units of the same basic insect. They just look separated to us. They all think as one. You know what I mean? I'm sure they feel some kind of a connection with each other, but nature did that. That's not fake. All right, now look, what's more? That's just our departure point here. Now here, what's more? Right. There are people who are very much in favor of all of this idea, right? And they have developed thought forms. You're going to have to look into thought forms here. I can't define that. No time, but it's here on my channel. Look it up. Thought forms. There's a whole series of videos called thought forms, I believe, on the thumbnail. All right. And there's other talk of it elsewhere here in this channel. Thought forms. Thought clouds. Groups of similar thoughts collected together. Those can, thought forms of the same kind along these lines can group together and thought form clouds. Thought clouds can be created by more than one person focusing on something strongly enough, emotionally strongly enough, to create a thought form that is more like a thought cloud. All their individual thoughts coming together and forming a thought cloud. And then if it takes on kind of like a life of its own, by way of the power of the wills of the creators of such thoughts, thought clouds, and they become a living thought form, and they can do things, and these are one of the major kinds of entities that are out there, astral and mental entities, that affect us strongly all the time. Okay. Well, there are thought forms and thought clouds associated with this whole artificial intelligence, nanotechnology idea, its benefits, as well as its drawbacks, its dangers, okay, to humanity. Once things like this get underway with implementation, what about the whole artificial intelligence setup in itself, creating its own thought forms? You think it wouldn't be able to? There'd be like a special set of thought forms. Now, they're called artificial because they're not natural, they're man-made. Okay, but what if artificial intelligence creates them? Then there'd be a fake artificial, an artificial entity. And what would its characteristics be? We would take on the same basic ones I'm proposing here as regular artificial entities. They're artificial in the first place. I mean, what with the people who create and believe in, fervently believe in and participate in transhumanism, you think something like thought forms aren't going to be thought of at some point and put into use along these lines? Very deceptive ones. Thought clouds, thought forms. Have you thought about this? This is a whole area in which I'm proposing that you want some insight into some affairs. Think about this. It's very real. It's very real. And how can this stuff be combated? By individually created thought forms and group created thought clouds that tear apart the other ones. This is something we need to learn to do if we're going to remain human, if we're not going to fall prey to becoming like Star Trek Next Generation Borg collective members, elements, beings, units. Like a group of ants running around under the total control of, I don't know, I guess the transhuman queen, ant, thing, being, person. Think about this. This is some real insightful stuff here. You're not going to hear that anywhere else that I can think of. I never did. No, but this is a real thing. It's just a, fast forward a couple of steps kind of way of thinking. We're going to learn to do that stuff here. And I got to trust that you are going to take such methods and information and twist it all around to your own personal self-centered advantage. You do that and you'll be my enemy. When I find out about you, and I will psychically combat you, and you will lose. See? This is not a matter of, two forces up against each other in the thought and astral worlds. And good wins over evil. The good guys will win. No. It's not a matter of that. That doesn't always happen. Besides, who is the arbiter, the judge of what the good is versus the other thing? Huh? That can get pretty self-centered really fast. Culturally relative, all of that. Morally ambiguous is what it is. No, this is a matter of positive polarity with respect to the other team. Now, you need to learn about polarity, don't you? I'm not talking about, think bright, think positive, think good. No, polarity. The power, the magnitude, the leader qualities, the this trumps that aspects, the more positively charged, relatively speaking, the more positive one side is over the other side. That's the triumphant side over there, the one that is more positive in polarity. We need to learn to make it that way. All right? You be one of those who says no to that stuff. You be one of those who comes up with the opposite and focuses on that and makes that manifest. Makes that real. Now there's some stuff to think about, right? We're going to talk about more about it. Did you like the video? Give it a thumb up. If you didn't, give it a thumb up anyway. Really? Seriously? You're going to give it a thumb down or just ignore it? Come on. And subscribe to the channel. You're not going to hear stuff like this anywhere else. And this is real stuff. All right? And it's in your best interests. You act in your own best interests. All right? And determine that you are going to participate in creating thought forms and creating your part in thought clouds that are in your best interest and everybody else's at the same time, as far as constructive evolvement goes, in correspondence with the direction that the entire universe is trying to go in with respect to evolvement, betterment, growth, becoming more than what it is, becoming more conscious than what it is. Not less. Not spiritual oblivion. It's spiritual growth. Movement toward greater self-control, self-discipline, self-mastery, self-awareness, self-expression, true self. Not consciousness hijacking and perception deception. And not some transhuman piece of crap. All right. I'm Turk Strawman, and I'm here. I'm a trucker. Now go be well and stay tuned.